That'd be interesting, Evan, to see what Andy Reid wants to do with something like that if he calls his plays to the opposite side.
Mahomes, he'll just chuck it ahead, and it's caught. McKinnon has that next gear. Touchdown on a full sprint to the end zone.
You are listening to KC Sports Network, the #1 podcast network for today's Kansas City sports fans. With former players from your favorite teams, informed perspectives, and former insiders, this is the place for you. KC Sports Network is proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Now, it may not have been pretty, but the Chiefs pulled out the victory on Sunday, holding off a Broncos team that had come back from a 27-point deficit to make it a game, but the Chiefs still walked away with their 14th straight victory over the Broncos. Now, that's a streak dating back to 2015. This is KCS, an update, our daily Chiefs show and podcast for you here at KC Sports Network. It's presented by our friends at DraftKings. Again, thanks for hanging out. I'm BJ Kissel, former Chiefs reporter. Now I'm working with more than 25 others trying to build a new outlet for Kansas City sports fans here at KC Sports Network, covering all our teams with fantastic hosts, analysts, former players, and insiders. We appreciate you for hanging out with us today. Please hit that like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, or follow us on your favorite podcast platform by simply searching KCSN. You can find all 6 of our audio channels that way. It's Monday, so we'll soon be joined by ESPN's Matt Miller for his stock up, stock down report. And following that game against the Broncos, if the conversation is anything like what we saw last night on the post-game show with the comments coming in from Chiefs Kingdom, it was really split pretty evenly right down the middle as to what that game means and how people feel about it. Even though it wasn't a great performance, it's how much do you put into that going forward. And we'll talk about that with Matt, plus much more right after this quick word from our friends at DraftKings. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is my go-to when betting on the NFL this holiday season. They have the best app that's easy to navigate, and I love all the different plays that they offer. And right now, new customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. And check this out. Right now, everyone can earn up to a 100% boost with DraftKings stepped-up same-game parlays. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, place a same-game parlay, and combine multiple bets like which team will win, player props, point totals, and more. The more legs you add, the bigger the boost, the bigger your shot to win big. My personal favorites are the anytime scorers. You don't have to be a betting expert, and it doesn't matter the score of the game at that time. You're always in it. You always have a chance to win. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code KCSN. Place a $5 bet on any NFL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code KCSN. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. All right, now let's bring on Matt. Man, I don't know if I'm just the so biased Chiefs fan that it's like, I don't care. Let's just get to the playoffs. But I'm very much in like survive and advance mode at this point. The team is who they are, is my opinion. The team is who they are. You want them playing their best football, but they have the team that they're going to take to the playoffs. They're not going to be able to make any wholesale changes. Stay healthy, pick up the wins, move on. But this is why we have a stock up, stock down report to really get into it, Matt. But what were your thoughts and feelings following that win over the Broncos yesterday?
Yeah, I think it's bittersweet because it is a win. And, road games in the division are always tough. It feels like Denver traditionally plays Kansas City pretty tough at Mile High or Invesco or whatever the hell they call that thing now. So I think, like you said, getting out with a win, you're happy. I think that's 14 straight against the Denver Broncos. So you love that. The Broncos are out of the playoffs for like the 7th straight year. You also got to feel good about that. You get to 10 wins. Travis Kelce gets to 10,000 yards faster than any tight end in NFL history. There's a lot of things to be excited about, but you don't bring me on here every week to just tell people what went well. I think that game being a 6-point game against one of the worst teams in the NFL that has felt like they were in a tailspin, not great. A 6-point game when you knock out the starting quarterback, really not great. So there's a lot more to get into than just the surface of, all right, we got out of there with a win. Let's move on to Houston or whoever's next on the schedule.
Yeah, they got Houston coming up. And it was funny last night on the show because, Kent gets wrapped up and he gets emotional. And like Matty is just like analyzing every negative, like a coach. He's just looking at every play individually and not like the the overall schematic of things, and Craig somewhere in the middle. And then I was just like, you know what? It's fine. So they won the game. It's the only thing that really matters. Let's move on. Yes, they're not a perfect team. Maybe they're not as good as or as dominant as we thought when the season began. But this is a team that's lost 3 games by a total of 10 points. And those 2 of those 3 games were, yes, they were against teams they're going to meet in the playoffs. But again, margin of error in any NFL game, 3 to 5 plays. If you take away, and I want to get into the stock down, I believe I know what some of those could be, but the turnovers made the difference in this game. And that is something that you'd be critical of. Is the one thing I said that I don't want to see kind of linger as far as just being careless with the football for, the best quarterback in NFL history. But end of the day, Chiefs won the game, and that's all that matters. But yeah, not the prettiest one. So I am curious where this conversation goes, because most people listening to this will know how I feel. I was accused of being a company man last night, Matt, and tell people that's why that job at the Chiefs was actually a perfect fit for me, because it's actually what I think and how I feel.
Right.
Wasn't just making it up. But let's get into the stock up, stock down report that you got. Let's start with stock up. Let's start with some positives, since I can control that. What do you got for us? Number 1 on the stock up report.
Yeah, BJ, I mentioned it. You guys knocked the starting quarterback out of the game. Not that we're out here advocating for violence, but you're usually going to win when you can get the starting quarterback out of the game. Hopefully Russell Wilson's okay. It was a scary hit, a clean hit, but a scary hit nonetheless. I think the pass rush is something to be excited about. 6 sacks, 11 quarterback hits. We know the Denver Broncos offensive line is beleaguered, to say the least. Dalton Reisner was out. He's their best player on the offensive line. You knew you were going to have some opportunities, and it feels like everyone had those. I mean, they teed off on Russell Wilson. They teed off on Brett Rippon. If you want to take away a positive, if you're going to have a silver lining to this game, it was, okay, we did win. No one got hurt. And, oh, by the way, we absolutely attacked the quarterback, whomever it was back there. 2 very different styles of quarterbacks. There was really only that one long run by Russell Wilson that kind of came, as an effect of that pass rush being so aggressive. And it really didn't really cost you. I think it's a 19-yard run. Didn't really end up biting anybody in the tail. So I think the pass rush, that's something you could build on. Houston played Dallas very, very well on Sunday. That's not a team you can necessarily just skip over right now, especially with Laramie Tunsil at left tackle playing as well as anyone in the NFL at that spot. So we'll see if this is, where the pass rush is trending in December, or if that was just a fluke game against a bad offensive line.
It's a great point. We spent so much time over the offseason, obviously, with what you do with the NFL draft. I mean, pass rush was discussed so much over the offseason because the Chiefs were not good at that last year. I mean, they had 31 sacks. No, sacks aren't the end all be all. We use it as a stat because it's the common one that we all talk about. But even the ability just to affect the quarterback, be able to move him off his spot, make him somewhat uncomfortable. The opposite of what we saw the previous week against Joe Burrow, where he had 1 quarterback hit in that entire game. He was comfortable throughout that game, wasn't really being affected by the Chiefs pass rush. But overall, what we've seen from this team this season has been significantly better in that area. 31 sacks total as a team last year. I think it was dead last in the AFC, 29th in the NFL. They've got 42 sacks already this season. They have 11 more than they had all of last year, with 5 regular season games left to play. So significantly better in that area. And it's coming from a lot of different guys. Obviously, Chris Jones being the defensive player of the year candidate. Right. But it's a lot of different dudes. George Karlaftis is getting in the mix now. Carlos Dunlap has stepped up and made plays. We've seen the defensive backs get in the mix because it's Steve Spagnuolo and he's going to send guys. Mike Dana is making plays up front. So it's great to see the pass rush getting home. And yeah, to your point, it's something they're going to need that group to be successful to win these important games, not just down the stretch against teams they should beat, but obviously going into the playoffs playing against good teams.
Yeah. What else? You're going to see some good tackles. Seattle on Christmas Eve, Charles Cross is playing very well at left tackle as a rookie. Abe Lucas at right tackle is playing really well. So it's something to 4 weeks left. I think it's definitely something to watch to see how these, young pass rushers do, or, bringing a veteran like Brandon Williams in. He has half a sack and 2 quarterback hits yesterday. So it's probably what I'll be watching most over the next 4 weeks.
I haven't had a chance to ask you, so take a quick pause here, because I know you're very familiar with Brandon Williams, considering you live right by where he went to school, and as a player that I remember that year at the Senior Bowl when we went down there together when we were watching him play. It was just not just because he was a local guy, but because he was just an absolute manimal at that time, and most people now are familiar with his NFL career. But thoughts on Brandon Williams joining the Chiefs, and not necessarily analyze his play from yesterday, but just in general, what were your thoughts on that move?
I loved it. I obviously got tipped off a little bit because, as you mentioned, living in Joplin, both being Missouri Southern guys, I did cover him a lot when he was coming out of college, and he had a great career with the Baltimore Ravens. I think it's a smart move for him. He gets his 10 years in the NFL. He has a legitimate chance to win a Super Bowl ring, which is something he didn't get in Baltimore, and it gives the Chiefs a 20 to 25 snap defensive tackle, nose tackle that you could put next to Chris Jones, and he's going to get some of that upfield push. Kind of rotating in with the guys like Colin Saunders, Derek Nottie. They're all similar in some regard as being, traditional nose tackles that have really good agility. So I think he fits in well. And also just giving this defense another veteran presence, someone that's been there, been highly successful in Baltimore, and, is going to help keep things in order over the next 2 months, hopefully.
All right, let's move on to another stock up for you. I know that Chiefs fans, depending upon how you're feeling, depending upon how many people listening to this have calmed down compared to what we saw on the post-game show last night, which was a lot of anger. It was a lot of anger, Matt, with me trying to be like, you know what? It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
Not excusing bad play and not saying that if they play like that in the playoffs that it's going to be okay, but not willing to make these huge statements about we got to fire this guy and this team's never going anywhere because of this, and this.
Oh goodness. Yeah, no.
It gets bad.
Definitely not there.
It's like they're one and done in the playoffs because they couldn't put their foot on the throat of the Broncos late in the game. It's like, yes, in general, I agree with you, but that's not, you can't take that and then just be like, that's what they're going to do in the playoffs. Right. You're talking about a playoff game.
Very different.
Very different. These guys are human. But the most important thing for me, no major injuries on the Chiefs side. So they just got to be playing their best football at the end of the season, and we've got 5 weeks left. So
plenty of time. I will say another stock up. Jerick McKinnon, once again, has a fantastic day. I mean, obviously there's the basketball no-look pass from Mahomes that's going to get the highlights. I know you guys are already dialing that reel up for the Hall of Fame video when he gets in, but I thought McKinnon just had a great game as a receiver. The burst that he brings is fantastic. That 0 to 60 is phenomenal. And it's what was missing, from this offense. I think it was 2 years ago I tweeted, they missed that. They missed that slashing speed back, someone that can create when they have a lane. And Jerick absolutely did that yesterday. 2 receiving touchdowns, came up huge. And, we're going to talk more about the run game as we get into stock down, but Jerick McKinnon made a big difference in this game yesterday with those 2 receiving touchdowns. And I think that's a role that has to be expanded more as we get into, when you're matching up against, like you said, Buffalo with Matt Milano and Cincy with Logan Wilson and whomever you might see in the playoffs. Jerick McKinnon has the ability to be a matchup problem for these teams.
Yeah, that was Jerick McKinnon, that 56-yard touchdown that you're talking about. That was the longest reception of his career. It was his second game of his career with more than 100 yards receiving. And we talked about it, with Mecole Hardman and Kadarius Toney not available. There's certain aspects of the Chiefs playbook that they're just not using right now with some of the jet sweeps, some of the ghost action stuff they're not doing, but they still have somebody out of the backfield. They still have somebody that can kind of attack the flats, that has that big play ability, not taking anything away from MVS or Juju Smith-Schuster, who had 9 receptions, had a big game and some big moments. Same thing with MVS, caught one of the biggest passes of the game. But having that skill set in Jerick McKinnon, we saw in the playoffs last year, really providing a spark for the Chiefs offense. And one of the more underrated players or key players for the Chiefs offense when they're at their best is when Jerick McKinnon is making plays out of the backfield. And yeah, we saw it again right there. Is it time to go to the other side of this, Matt?
Unfortunately, we have to talk. I mean, you bring me on not just to talk about the good, right? But to talk about the bad. And I will say, I'm not trying to toot our horn here, BJ, but we've nailed it on some of the things to be worried about. They keep creeping up. And so I think it's not to say that the Chiefs are one and done or that anyone needs fired.
Right.
I would remind people, folks like myself, and I know I actually said this after the draft last year. I said this might be a reload season, which didn't mean they were going to miss the playoffs. So it's like, this might be a year to kind of figure some things out, get the books healthy, and start to look at the next iteration of this team as some guys, Tyreek Hill, Tyrann Mathieu. We're expecting Frank Clark to, be a veteran that moves on very soon. I really thought 2022 would be one of those years where you're going to be good, you're going to be competitive, but it might be advantageous to like have the 22nd pick in the draft instead of the 31st. Or so I will say this team has outperformed my expectations. You can tell I'm a parent because I'm going to give you a little bit of good news before I give you the bad news here. First stock down. I'll start here. A 3 interception day. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to jump in here real quick because I made this point last night, and I hope it resonates with fans that are listening, because I think a lot of us that are like diehard Chiefs fans, you listen to this podcast, you listen to what we do, we put so much content out. We know you're a diehard fan. You are in if you're listening to this or watching this video. Like I've used where like there's no boogeyman out there for the Chiefs because we've seen who they have to beat. We've lined up on the field against the 2 other best teams in the AFC that they'll have to beat to move on. And yes, they dropped both of those games, but those games were by 2 or 3 plays, making all the difference in those games against the Bengals and the Bills. And if you're a Bengals or a Bills fan, they are doing the same thing on their side, talking about the Bills only scoring 20 points against the New York Jets, and they've got to be better. They can't score only 20 points if they're going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and they're banged up. They have their issues. There's nobody out there that's running away with this thing. Yes, there are areas that we have to clean up, but it's not like there's another perfect team out there. The Bills are not as good. We talk about the Chiefs not being as good. The Bills haven't played as well or been as good.
Von Miller. So
exactly. So like every team is dealing with issues. And so if we stay healthy and the guys stay confident and they're playing solid football minus some of these mistakes, they're going to be in it. Doesn't mean they're going to win, but they're not going to just be outclassed or out talented or out schemed by anybody else that they're going to play against. And so just enjoy the ride, hope that they make those 3 to 5 plays in crunch time when it matters, and hope the experience of the big games these guys have played in, from Patrick Mahomes to Travis Kelce to Chris Jones, all these guys, that pays dividends for them down the road when it's win or go home type mode. So that's my piece. It's the last thing I'll say as we get into the negative stuff, because there is a lot of negative to talk about from this game. But what do you got for stock down, Matt?
Yeah, I'll start here with the number 3, BJ. 3 interceptions by Patrick Mahomes, which just doesn't happen. So I'm not going to come on here on a Monday morning and be like, oh my God, the sky is falling. Mahomes isn't good. No, he's still amazing. He's still the best quarterback in football. It's just an odd day for him, especially 2 of those interceptions going to linebacker Josie Jewell. We don't really see linebackers picking off Mahomes. Not that we see anyone picking off Mahomes, but it was just an odd day, and I'm willing to chalk that up to a fluke. But the one thing that might not be a fluke, the number 3 again, Jerry Jeudy catching 3 touchdowns against this team, very much a surprise for me. I like Jerry Jeudy. I liked him a lot coming out of Alabama. I did not expect him to have a 3 touchdown day after we had praised guys like Trent McDuffie and we had praised Joshua Williams. We talked the secondary up, but the number 3, man, that when I was looking at the game last night as it was ending, to what are we going to talk about? What kind of made the difference in this being such a close game? Those 3 picks from Mahomes, the 3 touchdowns for Jerry Jeudy were just wild that jumped out to me.
Yeah. On a completely separate note, Matt, not talking about perhaps one of his touchdowns, but is offensive pass interference only called now on like pick plays?
Or only called on like Sunday Night Football, or like, it has to be like a marquee game.
Or if the receiver just straight up like completely extend, the rule is they extend their arm, which happens at the top of every route, it seems like. And it happens to Josh Williams, it seems like, a lot. So it pretty much have to take like the receiver throwing the defensive back all the way to the ground for the ref to actually pull a flag. Because I don't understand how you can watch some of these plays. The way the rule is, we complain about the roughing the passer. I know we saw it in the game last night between the Dolphins and Chargers, I believe. But if they extend their arm and they're running side by side, and then all of a sudden he's catching the ball with 4 yards of separation, something illegal happened.
And the other side of that, speaking of Jerry Jeudy, you can also apparently take your helmet off, bump an official, and start screaming at them, and nothing happens. So we'll see. I mean, he's going to have a FedEx letter in his locker on Thursday.
That's not
some charity is going to be asking for some money from Jerry Jeudy. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I think Joshua Williams, to put it in NBA terms, he has not earned that call yet. Hopefully he gets there, but he's not drawn that foul yet.
All right, fair enough. We could talk about that ad nauseum during the offseason. I bring up all the examples of guys extending their arms and all that. But yeah, Jerry Jeudy, huge game. Another guy, I agree. I thought he was going to absolutely crush it in Denver. I was not happy when they drafted him. Hadn't really been great, but it's very good yesterday. All right, what else do you got for stock down?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the defense, and not just to 28 points, but to have a 27-0 lead and to let a team back in, you're clearly letting your foot off the gas to some degree there. And I know we praised the pass rush, the 6 sacks, the 11 hits, but I thought the secondary just played a really poor game yesterday. And again, you can get away with that when it's Denver and Russell Wilson gets knocked out of the game and Cortland Sutton's not out there. You can get away with that, having an off day. Cannot get away with that against the Buffalo Bills, the Cincinnati Bengals. You might not be able to against the Los Angeles Chargers now that they're healthy. So it's definitely something that I'm sure in meetings tomorrow they're going to bring up. Like, this is not a highly graded game for the secondary for the Chiefs yesterday.
I'm really curious, and I haven't seen many people talk about this. I haven't really seen it outside of like a couple of plays, especially last week for Justin Reed. But did we? And I'm biased, and this people know how I feel if they're listening to this or they know anything about how I've talked about Tyrann Mathieu in the past. But are what we're seeing from the Chiefs secondary, particularly the 2 safeties, are we seeing the value that Tyrann Mathieu had back there that maybe wasn't given enough credit now that we're 13 games into this season, and we've seen pretty poor safety play for the most part over the course of the entire season?
I think it's possible. I would say probably more on like the mental leadership side than the
that's
on like playability. I think that's really fair. I think we do see a lot of guys out of place. We see some lapses in judgment. I think Juan Thornhill's having a pretty good year. I thought he had a pretty good game yesterday, but there's still just times where you're like, what is happening here? And so I do think could you chalk it up to acclimation? Probably, but we are 13 games in, so you would think that the guys would be hitting their stride. And I expected Brian Cook to probably have a bigger role as a rookie than he has. Really thought Justin Reed would have a better year than he's had so far. So I do think it's fair to look at the safeties and say that leadership might be missing more than we realized.
That and just a combination of Justin Reed. We know Spags likes to move guys around, do a lot of different things with them. L'Jarius Sneed has been a stud, but Justin Reed's a new face in there, getting a lot of reps, and maybe it just hadn't clicked yet. Don't know, only the guys in that locker room would know, but I feel like that hasn't been a narrative that people have talked about what Tyrann, and to your point, not necessarily making the plays on the field, but just from getting guys lined up and making sure everybody's on the same page, those kinds of things to make sure everybody's locked in and ready to go. Any other stock downs that you have? I know we kind of jumped around a little bit here.
Yeah, I'll throw one more out there. I thought the play calling got cute. And if I've ever had a criticism of Andy Reid as a head coach, it's that things get cute. Now, there was a moment yesterday, the Chiefs had a 20-point lead and 5 straight pass plays get called. The drive ends in an interception. Why do that? You have 2 running backs, and Pacheco and McKinnon, who are dependable, reliable. And I think Isaiah only had 13 carries yesterday. So, and the run game was working. I think that's just the thing where when you have that lead, normally you got a 20-point lead, you're probably talking like, man, can we pull Mahomes? And at one point it was a 27-point lead. And you're thinking, okay, maybe we get some guys out of here so they don't get hurt. But then here come the Broncos storming back. So I think that's, it's probably not going to come in the playoffs because those games are so tight. But I just think finding more balance offensively in moments, at least, maybe not overall, but there are times where they need to rely on the run a little bit more than they are. And I've said the same thing about Buffalo this year. You got to stop expecting Josh Allen to be Superman. And I think for Kansas City, there are times it's okay to lean on some of these young guys.
Yeah. My one stock down from an individual play call, and I think anybody listening or watching this without even seeing the highlight will know exactly what play I'm talking about, because I've praised this particular play on 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1. The Chiefs have run it 47 times. It's getting to the point where everyone knew it was coming at the beginning of the season, and they continue to do it. It had never not been successful until this season. I think they were probably converting about 95%. I'm talking about that little fullback inside dive where Mahomes opens up and turns. And I've been saying for a while, and the guys joke with me, and I know people hit me up on Twitter that listen to these shows, because there's the counter pitch off of that play, which they ran last week against the Bengals to pick up that first down. I've been saying that for a while because that's their favorite go-to play on 4th down. But handing the ball to Michael Burton there, it used to be Anthony Sherman, was always successful. And it's been stuffed like 5 or 6 times this season, it seems like. And unless they're going to run the counter pitch off that over and over and over again, I didn't like that play call because I think everyone knows what's coming at this point. And obviously they're better with schematic and all of that stuff. But I feel like they run that play twice a game. Every time it's 3rd and inches or 4th and inches, it's that same play coming.
No,
and
you're
so
right.
my stock down is that play.
I love Mike Burton. He's one of my favorite players in the league. He's great person. But maybe we find something else. I'm with you on that.
Doesn't matter how good you are if everybody knows what's coming. And a play like that, everybody's running that way. At least do the counter pitch on like 15 times and maybe loosen up the guys on the inside.
Keep
but
honest.
Yeah, did not work. All right, Matt, before we let you go, just moving forward, Chiefs, Texans this Sunday. They've got 4 games left in the regular season. How do you feel that this kind of goes for the Chiefs down the stretch? Is this a race in the AFC for that number 1 seed, which the Bills currently own that tiebreaker because of the head-to-head matchup, but they've got the same record.
Yeah, I know. I feel good about where things are. I think, I said before, Houston is not a team you can overlook. The Seahawks on Christmas Eve should be a great game, even though, the Seahawks are trending backward a little bit right now. They're still an explosive team. I think the number 2 seed in the AFC feels very, very likely at this point, which is where you were last year and ended up with home field advantage because the Titans got bumped. So I think there's, a lot of upside for this team still. I know it's hard on a Monday when you barely beat a really bad team, but that happens a lot in the NFL. And I think what you have to be excited about is a December win on the road in the division. No one got hurt. Those are huge takeaways. Yep. And you know how it is, BJ. You've been in those locker rooms. Sometimes it's not even the most talented team that wins the Super Bowl. It's the most talented, healthy team that wins the Super Bowl. So getting Cole back, hopefully getting Kadarius Toney into the mix, those things are going to help an already really healthy Chiefs team.
Yeah, and the one thing, and I think we take it for granted, and we take him for granted in talking about Andy Reid and just the kind of steady presence he is to not overreact to the narratives that the rest of us that get caught up in everything get caught up in, because he's looking at, all 60 plays for the Chiefs offense. And yes, play calling is a thing, but he talked about the interceptions. You take those interceptions out, and he said it on the post-game presser, you take those interceptions away and you feel like Patrick Mahomes had a good game, that he played really well against a very good defense. That was the most points the Broncos defense given up all year. They'd only allowed more than 20 points 3 times going into that game. So we've spent a lot of time making fun of the Broncos because of Russell Wilson and the trade and all of that. Had nothing to do with their defense, and that they were a very, very solid group on that side of the football. So survive and advance and move on. And then talking about the Bills, probably mention this on every show that I'm on here on KC Sports Network, but Bills' final 4 games of the season. We need them to drop just one of these games. If the Chiefs win out, they will get the number 1 seed. They've got the Miami Dolphins on the 17th, and that is a prime time game. That is a big one. They've got, yep. And they're at the Chicago Bears, at the Cincinnati Bengals, another game in prime time. And then they finish up the regular season against the Patriots at home. So 3 teams that can bite you, and even the Bears could jump up and play pretty well.
You have 4 games there that could be tough.
Yeah. So Chiefs obviously have to take care of business as well. But as much as we overanalyze and complain and get frustrated about the Chiefs not being a perfect football team at every aspect, there is no such thing as a perfect football team out there right now. Every fan base is having their questions and their statements of, if we don't get better at this one thing, we are not going to go that far in the playoffs. So, well, Matt, man, appreciate you for joining us again this week. What are you working on right now? I know we're getting inching closer to the NFL draft.
We are, man. Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl invites and accepted invites are going out. So I am actually right now updating my top 200 big board. We've been doing a lot of rankings at ESPN. I put out my round 1 grades on players last week. We're really gearing up for bowl season and draft season. So it's nonstop content on ESPN.com right now.
Love it. I'm going to ask one biased K-State fan. Where is Felix? Where is Andy Dookie?
Round 2.
Andy Dookie.
Round 2.
Round 2.
It's a good DN class, okay. BJ. Which good news for Chiefs fans potentially. It's a pretty good defensive end class.
Not bad.
It's a good corner class. It's a good defensive end class. So I know as January and February get here, we'll probably talk more about it. But the needs of the Chiefs match the depth of this class pretty well.
Yep. You got one edge rusher, one young corner on one side. You get another. You go back to back with, you get a good edge rusher and a good rookie starting corner, and back to back drafts that are on rookie deals for a while.
Damn good way to build a team, right? Yeah.
Brett would be happy with that. And I'd be happy to see 91, see old King Felix in a Chiefs jersey, getting after it with George Karlaftis, who just needs 1.5. He needs 1.5 sacks on average over the next 4 to at least flirt with that Derek Thomas record. So you never know. He's making a push. He's getting consistent. He's getting after it here. So hopefully he continues that. The Chiefs defense continues playing well, at least playing well in the moments that we saw him as far as the pass rush, but getting better overall, especially tackling the back end of that defense, all stuff we just talked about. Matt Miller from ESPN, man, we appreciate it. Thanks everybody for tuning into this episode of KCSN Update. The Lab Guys will be live tonight at 8 p.m. on our YouTube channel. You can catch that podcast after the fact, and I will be later this afternoon here on Monday coming out with the 10 things. Lots of nuggets coming out of this one, a lot of records and just interesting things that you can learn to make yourself sound smarter to your friends when you're all having those conversations. So appreciate all of you for hanging out. Please like and subscribe and follow us on those platforms, and we'll see you later.